I know, Kyle. I know you're actually looking up F1 stats and making sure that we can cover some more F1 racing in our TV diaries. I was listening to I haven't
Oh.
listened to all the Weeks of This Week podcast, but I was listening to it and I heard the bitter disappointment in Nick's voice as he realized what you were talking about, like 5 minutes after I realized what you're talking about. And I'm like, God damn it, Kyle, this is about cars, isn't
Did you
it?
get
And
in
then
into
Nick
the?
caught
Did you get to the fifth fun fact? That's where things
No,
got.
That's when I knew. That's where Nick broke character, and it was like actually Nick, and he was actually disappointed.
I was
and I was like, oh.
I think I was up to fun fact 2.2. Episode 388 of the TV Dudes, recorded June 8th, 2022. Exploring new territory. This week, we're exploring new territory. The Orville New Horizons on a new network and a new and changed galaxy on Hulu. We're exploring California, Alaska, and Russia, as well as Hawkins, in the fourth and final season of Stranger Things on Netflix. We're exploring Jersey City with the new heroine Miss Marvel on Disney+. And we're exploring the world of post-pandemic ATX TV Festival as guest Melissa Girimonte joins us to recap this year's festival. I'm Randy.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Nick.
And we're the TV Dudes. And welcome, Melissa.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Longtime listeners will probably recognize you because you did recaps of ATX TV with us before.
I have.
But hopefully you're going to be joining us for some other episodes down the line.
Oh, fingers crossed. You know, I'm a huge fan, and to be a part of it, it's like a dream come true.
It was so good to see you again for the first time in like 3 years. We've seen each other in person. So,
yep.
Yeah. So let's talk ATX TV first. Let's talk about the ATX recap. And I guess what was your overall take on this year's fest?
I thought it was a really great way to ease back into it. The weekend did not feel overwhelming whatsoever. There were still some little conflicts here and there, like having to make decisions between panels, but for the most part, it was a conflict-free zone in terms of that respect. A good balance of new shows and legacy shows, and just a lot of the regulars were back, which was really, really nice to see. And a bunch of new faces, which apparently it being virtual the past 2 years brought some new attendees.
Yeah, I had the same thought. It felt like a sort of rebuilding year. It wasn't usually when I'm doing my schedule, I've got 2 or 3 panels that I want to go to, and there's at least a few that are opposite one another. I did not have that this year. I didn't have any real big conflicts. I knew you did more interviews than me, so you had a couple more conflicts than I did. But I know you had to skip the Justified panel, I think, right?
I managed to catch the first 25 minutes of it.
Okay, all right. What was your favorite panel that you saw?
The one that is going to stick with me forever, and not just favorite of this year, but I'd say one of my favorites of all time in going to this festival for 8 seasons now, was the panel called The Last Note, which was with 3 music supervisors who are total rock stars in my books. I absolutely adore all 3 of the women who were on the panel. It was Maggie Phillips, Jen Malone, and Liza Richardson. Some people might recognize their names, especially because they've all been on some pretty high-profile shows the past few years. Maggie Phillips has done The Great and Fargo and For All Mankind, most recently The Dropout. Jen Malone, most people know her from Euphoria and Yellow Jackets, but also currently doing the music for The Offer, which is the series about making The Godfather.
Yeah.
And then Liza Richardson did Station 11, Watchmen, Lovecraft Country, Barry. Like, these are powerhouses, and these are shows that are like really, really well known for the musical selections in it. And that's something I'm always paying attention to. So learning about their process, especially the part of how you end an episode, like choosing a song for the closing credits, how important that is, and how streaming has kind of changed that, because certain episodes, you know, they go straight to like skip to the next episode and stuff like that. So they were talking about, you know, the logic behind where you put the most of the budget for a season, the importance of that final song in an episode, especially in a pilot or a season premiere. So it was just, some of it was a little inside baseball, but I think that they, approached it in a way that even a TV fan would get it. And it wasn't just for the industry nerds like me.
Mhm. I think the favorite panel that I saw was the Funny AF panel, which had Craig Robinson, Ed Helms, I'm blanking on her name from American Auto. I should have looked this up. And a new sort of someone who come up through like TikTok and that kind of thing. She was sort of a new comedian. And I feel like I'm free. Oh, and the showrunner from Rutherford Falls. And they were all on there basically just funny people talking about making comedies. And it was an interesting panel, but one of the things I found most interesting about it is that usually whenever they go to like audience questions, it's just like it's death. Like sometimes when they do the audience questions, I was kind of dreading what questions they're going to get, because half the time it's a, hey, I'm a comedian and how do I get to where you guys are? And it's just kind of wasting everybody's time. That sort of happened, but it was amazing because this guy stands up. He's a like an Asian guy. He's probably in his 30s, and he's like, "Hey, I want to thank everybody for coming to my birthday party." And then I thought that was pretty funny. And then Craig Robinson and Ed Helms, both of whom are really good singers, did a off the cuff a cappella rendition of "Happy Birthday" for him, where they harmonized, which was amazing enough. But then the guy sprung his question, and his question was, "I've been a stand-up comedian for like 13 years. How do I get it? How do I get in this business?" And Craig Robinson basically just like he sort of rolled like he like emotionally rolled his eyes, and you could tell he'd heard this question 100 times before, but it was this guy's birthday, so he indulged him. And he's like, so like, what do you want? What do you want? And the guy's like, well, I'd like to be Asian Jim, but like for more than 5 minutes. And they're all like, that's what you want? And they all gave this brutal advice about breaking in. And basically, like, one of them was like, yeah, you got to move to LA. It doesn't matter what you're doing in Austin. That's not doing it. And basically all this like really good advice, but just brutal and kind of funny. And at the end of it, Craig Robinson's like, happy birthday, asshole. And I about died. And I also feel like that guy probably got the best birthday present ever. He got a lot of good advice, and Craig Robinson basically, messing with him in a kind of a friendly way. And that to me is kind of what the festival is. It's like, it's such a level place. Like I feel like I could, you could talk to showrunners and actors and everybody's there. You don't get a lot of that crowding and stuff that goes on at San Diego Comic-Con and that kind of thing. And I thought that was just a perfect picture of that. I also thought that the two like big reunion panels, Justified Writers panel and especially the Scrubs reunion, were both huge successes.
They definitely were. That Scrubs reunion, like since the very first year that I attended. So my first year was season 3, 2014. And I remember meeting the founders of the festival, Caitlin and Emily. And they said to me, they're like, so if you could see any show reunite at this festival, what would it be? And I was like, Scrubs, of course. So this just kind of felt like a full circle moment, and was probably one of the biggest reasons why I decided to make my first trip to the US since before the pandemic, was to see that reunion. And it was totally worth it. Like, it was fantastic.
It was really great. I mean, that whole panel everybody was great. You could tell how much they loved each other. Sarah Chalk is hilarious. Her story about getting stuck in an elevator, and just you get this sense of who they are as people. Now, maybe it's a really well-crafted PR image, but you definitely get a sense that these people really like each other and were having fun hanging out, and maybe all drank a little bit too much together the night before. It was great.
Yeah, Sarah Chalk is definitely one of my all-time favorite people. I've actually had the chance to interview her a couple of times here in Toronto when she's been here for press junkets for other shows, mainly like for Rick and Morty. But she is really, like, she's the real deal. And once she meets you, she always remembers you, which I think is kind of cool. Yeah.
That's I mean, that's particularly impressive when Sarah Chalk, I'm sure, meets a ton of people. So that's very cool. I also, one thing I noticed is sort of a through line of this year's festival. It's always been the case, but this festival is mostly curated by, there's a lot of women at the top of it. And I noticed in the panels, without like making a big deal about it, like it wasn't like this is the diversity panel. There was like one panel about, immigrants and diversity. But usually at like conventions, especially like comic conventions, it's like, this is the diversity panel. This is where we put all the people who aren't white dudes. And the rest of the panels are all heavily white dude with one person who's not. And every panel that I went to, I think I saw a total of 3 white dudes, one of whom was a moderator and the other of whom was Ed Helms. Like, it really was like, there was a lot more people of color. There was a lot of indigenous representation. There was
We're losing our power.
there's a lot of representation of women, and I thought that was super cool. I really enjoyed, like, there was an executives panel, and there was one guy in it, the guy from Rooster Teeth, and everyone else was a woman, and I thought that was really cool. And it's like I say, it wasn't a like, hey, here's the women panel. It's no, this is just the way it is. Like, they went out of their way to get voices that aren't necessarily heard and elevate them, and I think that's really cool about ATX.
Yeah, it definitely, like, the indigenous programming on the Thursday, like, I know it wasn't intentional,
Yeah.
but it was really great, especially, like, in terms of, like, Rutherford Falls, which
Mhm.
for some people, this may be, like, their first, exposure to a show that has such a heavy indigenous focus. And it's one of my favorites. I love that show. But also for the opening night premiere, which was Dark Winds, which I was so blown away by that premiere. I am so in for this show. But one of the people in it, her name is Jessica Matten, and she plays a tribal police officer in the series. But I know her from Canadian TV because she's been in a bunch of stuff up here. She's phenomenal. She's so talented. And now, like, I'm really excited that the rest of the world gets to meet her and see, like, this little treasure that we've been keeping to ourselves for a while. And it's funny because the director of the show was saying that that's one of the things he's most excited about, is that he thinks that her star is about to, like, just blow up.
Oh, nice. Any other thoughts about the ATX TV Fest before we move on?
It was just such a great year. So many great highlights. The Justified creatives reunion that you mentioned was so cool in respect to, like, looking back at the series, touching a bit on the upcoming series, and then just seeing where everyone else landed. Especially the women on the panel who've gone on to showrun things, which I think is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Can you open up some questions to me and Nick?
Yeah.
Since we didn't get to attend.
Yeah, Cal, but I don't know what to tell you about the breaking into the ATX TV Festival as a fan. I don't know what to answer that question.
Yeah, I've been trying to go for about 13 years, and I just, wondering how to, get.
First, you got to buy a ticket, and then that's the only step. That's the only step.
No. My two questions are, the first one, more from Melissa. Did you eat anything yummy down there?
In Austin?
Yeah. What was your favorite meal you indulged in during the festival?
Oh my!
And also to you, Randy.
Gosh, I can't choose. Like, everything I ate was so good. Randy finally exposed me to the wonder that is Jew Boy Burger.
Oh yeah.
I haven't. He's mentioned it, but I haven't had it
sorry,
myself.
What? Wait a minute. That it sounded like you said Jew Boy, and then put burger after
correct.
that. But that can't be right.
No, that is correct. It's a guy. He used to hang with, like, the Mexican gangs, and they would call him the Jew Boy.
Wow.
Because he's Jewish, and so it is a mix. It's a burger place, but he also does burritos. He also does, and then he does, like, potato pancakes and stuff. And it is for my money the best burger in Austin. How have you not heard me talking about this, Nick? I love this place.
That is, I would definitely have remembered the name specifically.
Yeah,
that is some solid branding.
And the burger of the month they had this month was a crossover with So's Delivery. So it had the crab rangoon filling on a burger, and it was fantastic. It was super good.
I prefer Buddhist pizza.
We also did our traditional visit to Gus's Fried Chicken.
Yes.
Ooh, yes.
That's one of my favorites. I think one of my favorite discoveries this trip was the area called The Yard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We went specifically to check out Still because I'm a bourbon fan, and it happened to be open on the later side on Sunday night, like after 8 p.m. So we went to check that out and then discovered this whole other area. Most of it was closed, but there was a brewery that was pretty sweet as well. So
St. Elmo?
it was St. Elmo.
Yeah, nice. It's close to Still, but there's probably like 3 more right by there.
Yeah.
Like, I probably had a 1 out of 3 chance of getting that right.
Yeah, it was St. Elmo. There was a sake place that was closed already. There was another brewery right there that was already closed. Like the only two things that were
Hmm.
open were Still. So once Still closed, we moved to St. Elmo, and
Yeah.
their beer, they had like a passion fruit sour that was really, really good. But
Ooh.
Still, the bourbon lemonade at Still, I'm going to be dreaming about that until next year when I'm back.
Nice. I think we did a like TV Dudes drinks one time back when we had like the bigger
We
crew,
did.
and we would
We
go
did.
and like a couple times a year go out, and that was one of our outings.
I remember that. I remember that was good. I forgot that's where that was.
Yeah, they got the big Connect Four outside. The other question, though, real quick, did you have any fun like brushing shoulders with celebrity moments on the streets or like in between events?
Melissa, you want to go first?
Sure. I wouldn't say necessarily on the streets, but in the press lounge or um I did the opening night red carpet and
Ooh.
it was fun to like catch up with a couple of people that mainly I know from the festival, but I've kind of they're not friends, but it's people that you see and you're happy to see each other when you run into each other again. So like running into someone like Nick Wexler, who is one of the festival advisory board members, ambassadors, and who was actually in Toronto filming last year. And it was surreal because I'm like, oh my gosh, you're in my town right now. So like there was stuff like that, but for me, like I did get the opportunity to interview some amazing people. And for me, like the biggest win of the weekend was sitting down with Jen Malone for a half an hour and talking about music and like not just nerding out over her work, but nerding out over other people's work. Like she is also a fan of music supervisors. And so I think that was like a really big weekend highlight for me.
I've just realized I'm a bad host. We didn't tell people where to find your interviews and stuff.
Oh, well, I host a little podcast called FemTV, and it's an interview series featuring women who work in the TV industry, in front of the camera, behind the camera, all levels, everything from directors and producers to costume designers and music supervisors, sometimes actors. But yeah, that's where you can find me. It's femtvpodcast.com.
And as far as like, I saw Adrienne Palicki running away from a crowd of people seeking autographs. I adore her because
That's your
she
girl.
played Mockingbird, and I love her. And what's killing me is I wasn't checking my email enough during the fest. I was keeping up with stuff, and I had asked about doing some interviews, and then hadn't heard anything back. So I figured, okay, well, I'll just do the one interview I had. And then on Saturday, I checked my email, and at about I want to say about 2 o'clock, and I saw that I had an email on Friday night, like, "Hey, do you have time for an Adrienne Palicki interview at 1:30?" I was like, "Oh man, I totally missed it.
Wow.
I had an interview shot, and I could have talked about the Orville with her, and I'm bummed that I didn't get a chance to do that." And then the other thing was, Melissa knows about this. I have a picture from, I think it's the first season, maybe the second of the TV Festival, with Bill Lawrence, creator of Ted Lasso, Scrubs, Spin City, Cougar Town, which is where I was at the Cougar Town panel, and I have a picture of him with me, a grainy picture on an old cell phone, just like from an early TV. And so he was at the Scrubs panel, and I knew they'd be going to the Industry Lounge. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to the Industry Lounge before I close out my festival, because I was on Sunday and I was about to leave. And I'm like, I'm going to see if I can catch Bill for a second and get a picture with him, because he seemed like he's really nice about this. Like, people were asking him to sign DVDs. He's like, find me after. I'm like, okay, he'll be okay with this. He won't feel like I'm harassing him. And so I went to the Industry Lounge. The plan was working. The entire Scrubs cast goes in there, but then they're keeping us all. They're like, yeah, we're doing a quick Scrubs photo shoot, so no press, nobody else in there right now. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll hang outside. So I'm hanging outside. I saw Bill Lawrence go in, and I figured I'd see Bill Lawrence go out. And I'm like, I can catch him for a picture on his way out, and then I'll go. And there was someone standing there next to me, and I didn't realize it. And so as he comes out, she runs up to him, and she's like, hey, I'm from Deadline, and she makes a joke, and they start walking off. And so Deadline scooped him up for an interview before I could get my picture. And I even embarrassed myself a little. I was like, hey, Bill. He didn't respond. Probably, I don't know if he didn't hear me or was like doing the wise thing of like running away from someone. And so I was like, okay, not getting this picture. Oh well. So that was my both my celebrity run-in and my disappointment for the fest.
Those are some of the memorable stories, though.
Yeah. Anyway, it was super fun. I'm so glad I went. I was not sure if I was going to go this year, but it was the Justified panel and then Scrubs that really hooked me in, and totally worth it. All right, let's jump over and talk about our TV diaries for the week.
The Diaries of the Television Dudes. Brought to you by only the finest cocaine wine.
I'm going to start because I have 2 weeks worth of diaries because I went on last week. And also, I didn't watch as much TV because I was at a TV festival.
Mhm.
I am so behind on television because I was at a TV festival. So I saw the season 3 opener of Evil, which isn't coming out for 2 more weeks. I saw that at the TV fest. And it was great. It was really good. I saw the season 2 opener of Rutherford Falls, which also was really strong. I thought that show got better and better as it went along. But season 2, it's like they found a new gear. They figured out what all the characters should be doing. They have a Dirty Dancing riff that just killed me. It is a great show, and it's better than I gave it credit for, and that was really fun. That was stuff I saw at the festival. Before the festival and after, I saw Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. I'm 1 episode behind on that. I'll be 2 episodes after we finish recording this. I caught the 4 episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I saw the first episode, and I guess that was the homework. And then I watched a little bit more Brooklyn Nine-Nine with Megan. So I'm like, we're making our way through. She's never seen all the way through. We're almost the end of season 7. We'll have just season 8 left, and then we'll be done. So it's so good. Season 7 was so good, and the show really did go on a high note. So that's me. Kyle, what about your F1 racing? What do you have to talk about this week?
Actually, yeah, I'll start off with that because I know, Nick, you like to give me a hard time, and you know it may seem uninteresting.
No, I absolutely hate it. I actually would rather we never do it.
Man,
I experience no joy when you do this.
But I experienced joy listening to it. I got to listen as a fan this week, and it was so much fun.
So there's this guy out there. I just saw him on TikTok. I don't even know. He probably has a YouTube channel, but he's called F Bone because if you take the B out, it's F1. But
oh man, I hate this story so much already. I am trying to keep quiet, Kyle. You are testing the limits here.
But here's his gimmick, all right?
Oh fuck.
When he records his show, he's sitting in a race car bed, like a little kid's race car bed. And he's got like his podcast mic and everything down into the bed and his little cup.
Kyle, I have an important question. Is it
Yeah.
some poor kid's race car bed and this guy just broke into their house?
How amazing would it be if it was his kid's bed and he's like, you get to stay up late tonight. Dad needs to use your room.
Use your bed to record.
This guy sounds super cool.
Oh man. And of course, I love it. It is, yeah, he's hilarious and super cheeseball, but like in the best way possible. Not technically TV, kind of like my next one. Bill Maher is like in the podcasting space now, and not just like a real-time podcast. He's like started his own thing that's straight to YouTube, and they're like hour-long interviews where he just gets drunk with some celebrity.
That's what I want. Bill Maher with just the hour of audio. That sounds great.
The best thing about no, it's a video podcast.
Well, of course, he can't not show
as
his
well.
face.
Well, and what's interesting is he built like a man cave / tiki bar, not even tiki, but like it looks like a club or a bar, you know, not necessarily as cheesy as a Chili's, but like you know, a couple steps above that.
Oh, a douche pad. Okay, I know what those are.
I mean, yeah, you're not far off. But he's got it rigged up with cameras like Big Brother in there. So yeah, he can literally sit down anywhere and they can just start recording a podcast. But Mike Tyson, that one was kind of interesting. Jimmy Kimmel was really interesting because technically they're both liberals, but like the stuff they disagree on is really interesting. And listening to people who have a lot in common talk about the things they disagree in, like it's kind of refreshing. I guess I can't find enough of that. Let me see. Judd Apatow was pretty good. And then he had Killer Mike on there. I haven't seen that one yet, but that's my next one. Yeah, and then outside of the homework, the stuff we're going to talk about next, I kind of a fun part of my TV watching schedule now is during the week when I work, I kind of Shannon is binging her shows in the other room. So I find myself tangentially watching stuff. So this week it's been Castle all week.
Oh,
There's just been like
yeah,
episode after episode.
yeah.
So it's like not only do I catch it when I walk out there, but I'm kind of just listening to it all day long. So I'm getting like the whole rewatch experience.
Just going to sleep with the dulcet tones of Nathan Fillion in your ears.
hmm
Because Castle's a good sort of background watch. It's one of those that's like it's always entertaining, but I never fully like latched onto it. But it's such a good like background watch.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't know if I'd be week to week like, oh, Thursday night, can't wait to turn on, ABC or whatever. But like binging it, yeah, it's just kind of sitting in the background. But I've gotten to where I can't really watch shows when I work anymore because every time it's like something with subtitles or something with like no like audio, like anything, like really long, shots of like the prairie side, and then the detectives come up and here's the body. Like I just I get burned whenever I try to multitask like that.
See, that's what you got to do. Is the USA shows are great for that. They figure you're not paying attention and
Yeah.
repeat plot points audibly 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not embarrassed to say the last USA show I really got down with was Weird Science or Duckman, whichever one came out
Wow,
last.
man, that is old school USA.
That's my USA.
Wow. I forgot about Weird Science. It's funny. My college roommate's ex-girlfriend was randomly in an episode of Weird Science. We were watching it, and we're like, "Wait, it was a bit part. It was somewhere all the girls were like being mesmerized. There's some kind of Weird Science they'd done where all the girls were mesmerized by Gary and Wyatt, and she was one of the girls staring hypnotically at Gary and Wyatt. And we're like, "Wait, I know that girl." Very weird experience.
Oh man. Yeah, no, I love that when I was younger. I couldn't get enough of it.
Is that the TV Diaries for you, Kyle?
That's my TV Diaries.
All right. Nick, tell me about your disappointment with Young Justice.
It's just not very good. I'm more disappointed than anything.
Brutal.
Like, I'm not mad, Young Justice. I am
You're
disappointed
not mad,
in you.
just disappointed.
I expect
Think about
better.
what you've done.
And I wouldn't if I didn't think you were capable of it. Now go to your room. I watched MST3K had a new drop this week, so I watched Munchie, the MST3K guys.
You're on the subscription, right?
No, I didn't get.
Don't they
I
have a
wasn't.
new thing?
Didn't know about it for the Kickstarter, so I'm paying like $15 a pop for those fucking things.
Oh dang.
There is like I don't.
That's a real fan.
At least I can't find a way to like subscribe to this without spending $100 like dropping it for like a year. Like I don't want to go all little live events or Q&As via Skype or whatever. I just want to watch the damn shit. But I rewatched Shoresy, which
okay, all right.
I think I appreciate that show and what it's trying to do more. I really wish it had another episode to really stretch out. It feels very short, and like I think one of the reasons I rewatched it is like there's not enough of this. Like I feel like it really needed something there, something in the middle too. I'm not sure what it was, but I continue my watch of Rise of the Shield Hero, and yeah, that was about it. I didn't watch too much this week either. I mean, I did watch all the homework for this, which was trying to catch up for that, but I'm behind on Stranger Things too.
Yeah, that was like a whole season of a show. That kind of like derails other TV watching.
Yeah, there was a lot of homework this week. I noticed that after I'd done it. And then I didn't do it. So Melissa, do you have I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you have TV Diaries for us this week? I know you were at ATX too.
I still managed to watch a bunch of TV.
Oh yeah, what'd you watch?
That's professionalism.
Yay. So I've actually been watching for the very first time Brothers and Sisters because it's streaming here and I love pretty much everyone in it. So I'm now about halfway through season 2 and getting a kick out of it. I started conversations with friends on the airplane home. And it's really, really good. It's based on a book by the same author as Normal People.
Okay.
So it's it's a really deep kind of relationship drama, but they're half-hour episodes. So it's intense, but you're not in it for an hour at a time.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I started watching The Staircase to prep for an interview, but ended up really, really liking what I've seen so far. Colin Firth, my God, like what a performance. And then Obi-Wan, completely up to date on Obi-Wan. My gosh, can I please adopt little Leia? Like I want
Oh
I
yeah.
don't like children. I want this child.
I don't know. She seems brutally honest.
Mhm.
You better be secure with any character flaws you might have.
Yep. I love how blunt she is. And then Barry. I mean, I have to stay up to date on Barry
Oh, I'm
and
behind on Barry. I'm
uh
like I'm worried about it. I'm worried it'll get spoiled. It's like that's the one that like I need to get back to. That and Better Call Saul. I love both shows, but that's how behind on TV I am that I'm behind on those shows.
Those are shows you want to dedicate your attention to. Like you can't just watch
Yeah,
those on the road or on a plane or something.
for sure.
My buddy I work with was saying that about Barry. He's like, it's like a sporting event. Like you got to stay off the internet if you don't catch it like the night that it comes out. Like you don't want to know the score by the end of the
Right.
episode.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, and then my must watches, which are like my sports, are the current season of Drag Race All Stars All Winners and the current season of Legendary.
Okay.
So like those, if I get spoiled on those, I get really, really angry. And I'm not a competition show person until like recent, like I'd say in the past 3 years, I've gotten into Drag Race and completely caught up. And then Legendary, which is like a ballroom competition.
Yeah.
So it's like really, really cool. And this week's episode is an anime ball. And the host of the show came out dressed as Tuxedo Mask from Sailor Moon, and I
Yeah.
nearly lost my mind.
Fuck yeah, Tuxedo Mask.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is probably a good time to remind you that you can go over to patreon.com/tvdudes, throw us a buck an episode. In exchange, we have to keep up our streaming services, pay for our hosting costs. You get bonus content each week. This week, I think we got part 2 of our D and Dudes. Is that correct, Nick?
Yes, we do.
All right. Awesome. Last week we had part 1. Hopefully you all enjoyed that.
Well, listen to our further adventures of defending the Peak TV and all of its denizens.
We've also got our $20 shorter level, so if there are shows you want to throw in rotation, you can buy it at the level, give us a couple of ideas. I believe House of Chocolate is coming up next week. We've been trying to squeeze in. There's so much TV, y'all. We've been trying to squeeze in the Patreon requests, but we're going to start getting in on those.
Yeah, if you have a show that has a character in a tuxedo, maybe a mask, we might be able to watch it.
All right, it's time for new business, and let's start with what is probably going to wind up being our extra double dessert. But for right now, is a new taste for this week. That's a weird. I don't like that. I don't like that anymore. I don't like that reference. But we're going to go.
That
with it
didn't
anyway.
come off the tongue.
It did not come off the tongue in a way I enjoyed.
you found
No,
desirable.
I did not enjoy it. Let us talk about Miss Marvel, which opened up on Disney Plus. I don't know about you guys. I don't know where you guys are on Kamala Khan. I have been a fan of this character since the first issue came out in 2014. I loved this character, and I have really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the entire comics run, and I have been waiting for her to come into the MCU. And man, I thought they fucking nailed it.
Miss Marvel rules. I actually fell in love with her via the Avengers video game of all things. With her storyline in that, which I thought was really cool. Like I just like the idea of like I think that it was such a smart thing to have the next generation of Avengers be fanboys of previous Avengers. It made the transition is so much easier. It makes so much more sense. Like, why are they dressing up in costumes? Why are they, so gung-ho about doing the right thing? Like, child mindset is just really, I think it really does wonders for it. And I love Avenger Con, which I'm like, it's been 10 years since superheroes, like, this can't be the first Avenger Con, but I guess we'll pretend.
I love the idea of there being an Avenger Con. This is one of the things in the comics. Kamala is she's a fan who like plays like online multiplayer war games like World of Warcraft type thing, but in Marvel Universe. And so that was her thing. And that would have felt really dated at this point, I think.
Mhm.
So it made a lot more sense to make it be like she makes little YouTube videos about superheroes and she's got theory. And Ant-Man has a podcast because of course he does.
That line was amazing.
That was so good.
Man, what would you give to listen to an episode of that podcast?
I want Paul Rudd to do that
They-
podcast. Yes, please.
They rule 43 into existence. Like
Yeah.
we're gonna get it. Doesn't exist now, but it
it's
will.
It will.
Because of that one little line.
Yeah. So that was really cool. I liked her. I love the little animation stuff behind. People have compared it to sort of Scott Pilgrim-y, which I think is a fair comparison.
Ooh, yeah. And I even made the joke. I was like, if you want to know what Edgar Wright's Ant-Man would have looked like, check out the trailer for this. Which, speaking of that, I thought the motion graphics in the trailer looked a little cheesy, like just so spot on with the Scott Pilgrim stuff.
Yeah.
And I was pleasantly surprised that when you actually see what they do in the show, it is way more detailed and way more interesting than that. So much so to say, this might be one of like this show is probably going to win awards for its motion graphics just because of like what they were able to do.
Well, when she's talking about Captain Marvel and how she could change the cosplay, and we're seeing all these versions of Captain Marvel in basically in the background, that was super cool. I thought that was really, and they did it again when she and Bruno are texting, and the emojis and their messages are showing up in like the neon signs around them.
The neon signs. It has to be a mix of practical and digital.
Yeah.
Like some of those neon signs have to be really, I mean, maybe not. Maybe it's all digital and it's just they got the money, but it looks real. Everything is so embedded into the backgrounds, and that's something that you don't really see often because I imagine it's either time consuming or expensive.
Well, and I thought they did a good job showing that Kamala Khan is a different kind of like, she is a fangirl, but she's also, they really did not shy away from, she is a Pakistani girl in a Muslim household.
Yeah.
And she lives in Jersey City. We have not seen this before.
Jeez, and does she have a Pakistani mom? God. Just...
You know, she has the Pakistani mom. She has, it's Zenobia Shroff, who was also in The Big Sick and was amazing in that. Also plays a mom in like The Resident. She basically she has played the Pakistani mom in everything, and because she's always good at it, she's so good.
You do trust me, right?
No, I don't trust you.
Of course she does.
No, I don't.
I don't trust her.
I love her dad. I think that Mohan Kapoor, who is the guy playing her dad, the two of them have such great chemistry, because that bit where they break into her room and he is decked out as the Hulk, as an Indian version of the Hulk, and or Pakistani version of the Hulk.
You can tell he had to try and convince her to say yes to this. Like this.
Yeah. And then
this compromise.
He goes all in. He's in green makeup. He goes all in, and then Kamala just shuts him down. And
it's devastating.
I loved in the next scene when she's talking to Bruno. She's not upset about her. She's upset because she realized that she really hurt her dad's feelings. And I was like, oh man, that's good. Because they thought they'd come up with this great compromise. They're going to make their daughter happy. And she's in full, they don't understand. They do not understand what she wants. And it's hurting them. And I think
because it's like, oh, well, what's the difference? Why can't we come with you? Because you will ruin it. You will ruin this entire experience for me.
And the thing is, Kamala's not wrong, but at the same time, her parents aren't either. Like they're trying to protect her. They're trying to understand her. They're trying to meet her in the middle, but they just don't know how. And I think that is such a good, like, nobody's the bad guy here. It's not like, oh, these terrible parents, this great kid. No, they really are good parents.
I mean, at least the parents, they've dipped in as far as to whose side I'm on. Like the parents are like, you realize that Kamala's like 16, right? Like, she does not have to figure out everything about her life this exact second.
Right.
She is a child.
The other thing I also love in the dad's performance, like you were saying, the dad and the brother are really well aligned.
They're great.
Like the brother seems like a younger version of the dad, and both of their relationships with Kamala are really fun to watch.
Yeah. Let's not talk about Kamala. Let's talk about the rest of the supporting cast, which I don't know if y'all have read much of the comics.
Not me.
So I have read all of these comics. I love them. And their supporting cast, Bruno Corelli, Nakia, and Zoe, are all really important characters. And they laid each of them out really well in this first episode. And there's more depth. Like Zoe, I know, seems like the typical sort of airhead, and there's more to her. Nakia doesn't get a lot of play, but there's more to her.
Well, obviously because she shows up at AvengerCon, Zoe, like with
Yeah,
the full thing, and she's excited.
yeah. She's not
She's
the
into it.
typical stare. Yeah, she's not the like mean girl that you think that she would be, and I think that's really important.
That's kind of neat.
But also, Bruno is fantastic. He's an archetype. He's the guy who's in love with his female best friend and she doesn't realize it. But also, he builds basically an Alexa for the family that sort of works, but it speaks Urdu. And it's like that is a level of like this is an 80s character. This is the 80s character who builds
This is
tech.
Steve Urkel.
Yeah, and it's gonna come in handy. I mean, in the Marvel universe, if you're a gadgeteer like that, you're gonna wind up working as the man in the chair.
Well, I
So
mean, in Marvel Universe, if you get good enough at using gadgets, you basically become superhuman at it anyway. Like, there's a level of
right.
like karate, archery, and gadgetry that you just go to superhero level.
Yeah. I also want to mention Jordan Firstman, who plays Mr. Wilson, the guidance counselor. G. Willow Wilson is the co-creator of this character, and so Gabe Wilson, that is their nod to her.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was one of the first guidance counselors I've seen who is both a dork and not that helpful, but at the same time, you're like, you know what? He is actually trying to help her. He's not a worthless waste, because guidance counselors get a bad rap in these teen movies whenever they happen. And I was like, no, this dude's cool. He's actually a cool guy. He's a little dorky, but he's a cool guy.
That's such an interesting subset of TV we get to talk about this week because we have multiple guidance counselors in the shows that we watched. We can compare them all.
Yes, compare contrast guidance counselors. Yeah.
Damn them for doing their job. I like that. You really are like, okay, I know that we're talking about you not paying attention, and we're literally 30 seconds in this conversation, and you are off somewhere else. Like, she's already fantasizing about other shit, and he's like, I'm talking. We just started. Like, you gotta like.
I love their heist version of them going to the AvengerCon.
Are you quoting Mulan?
That was a great little sequence. I also let's talk about Iman Vellani, because Kamala Khan is a very specific type of character, and you have to get someone who can be smart and funny and nerdy and a little bit annoying, but also someone you love. And it's a tough, like, tightrope, and I thought she just nailed it. She is so likable.
Well, I mean, they get the idea of like, well, I've met cosplayers that are act just like that, so no, I gotta have an extra flair on my costume. It's not right without a little extra flair that makes it mine.
Well, and I never read the comics, but I'm a big fan of like all that artwork, which I've seen, whoever drew her in the Champions. Like, I thought those books looked really cool. But it almost seems like as she's like trying different parts of the costume, like she's kind of putting together what eventually will be her costume in her head.
Yeah, for sure. She puts the sash on because she's sort of embarrassed about the skin tight uniform, and that's going to be a thing that happens later. There was some discussion online. People were not happy about them changing her powers, because in the comics, she has these sort of stretchy powers. She says she embiggens, polymorph. She gets taller. Yeah. And they didn't do that. And also her powers come from this weird Inhumans thing they were doing, which of course they got rid of that. Instead, she gets sort of
they don't want to have anything to do with that.
With the artifact, and I thought that was a good origin.
Yeah.
Can I do a little inside baseball?
Sure,
because
absolutely.
I think this is a bad
Let's get to those rubber bands.
And here's why. Yeah. I think that they had to have had the discussion to make her stretchy. All right.
Yeah.
And I would even venture to say that they tested it and they wanted to see what it would look like on screen. And if it didn't look good, which is a pretty plausible reason why they wouldn't include it, that means we don't got stretchy for Fantastic Four yet.
Well, right. I tell you what happened was that in the Multiverse of Madness movie, they were like, okay, make a good Fantastic, like Mr. Reed Richards. So it costs that how much for that many seconds? Okay, so Kamala Khan has energy powers.
That could be too. Yeah, it could just be too expensive to do it.
No, because the energy powers are a lot easier to render, and they're not. You're never out of it of like, well, that's not a human hand stretching. That's a CGI thing.
Right.
It's made to put ease onto the special effects team.
I thought they did a good job though, because the trick was getting most people who don't know Miss Marvel aren't going to know that those are not her powers. There's like, oh, energy powers, so people get.
Yeah.
But the fans are going to be looking and watching this. And I think they were smart in that her first expression of energy is like little blasts, but her second expression of her energy powers is her stretchy and big in hand that she used to save her friend. And it was such a perfect, like, oh, I recognize that from the comics. It wasn't her stretchy hand, but it was her stretchy hand. And so it's like, no, we get it, guys. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do the thing you want us to do.
It's like what a kid would imagine as a power. It's my hand, but it's big.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But no, like there's some like illustrations I've seen of her where she's just walking around with a fist, like getting ready to punch somebody.
Yeah.
And that stuff looks so cool.
Yeah. The question I'll be interested to see is whether she will use the powers to get bigger, like if she actually grows when she embiggens. And I wonder if they'll do something like that or not, or if
they might do an astral form of her or something.
Yeah,
like an avatar type thing.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's we don't get powers until toward the very end, which I don't think is a particular problem. I think they did a lot of setup work that I found very interesting and fun. And I'm curious, and I love that Bruno knows who she is, which is also something from the comics. I'm looking forward to seeing how she transitions from being Kamala Khan into Miss Marvel. I also like this little thing when Zoe notices her necklace and she's like, "Oh, it's my name in Urdu," which is interesting because it's her symbol that's going to be on her shirt, and that is not, I don't think, a thing. Unless I'm misremembering, I don't think that's from the comics. I think this is a little thing they invented, and I'm like, that's actually really clever if they managed to do that.
Well, it's clever on a thing basis, but on a practical level, as a superhero, she's putting her name on her costume. So,
how many villains speak Urdu? Come on.
Well, and all villains are racist, so they wouldn't.
Yeah,
you're gonna get the one inclusive villain like that hired diversity hired, so the government
Captain
wouldn't get
Woke.
off his ass.
Yeah, henchman number 7's like, wait, is that Urdu? And she's like, oh great, now I have to kill this guy. Did you guys stick around for the post credits?
Yeah.
Yes. I think I recognize that guy. I'm about to find out.
I almost didn't. So I didn't. They haven't been doing post credits except for the very last episode.
Yeah.
So I didn't. So, but I was like, I wanted to watch the trailer and the post credits. I don't know if you guys knew who those are. They're called Agent Deaver and Agent Cleary.
Were they in Spider-Man Far From Home?
Possibly. They are from Damage Control, which is the superhuman, like the superhuman cleanup crew.
Oh, okay.
They're and so that is a thing that Dwayne McDuffie created for the comics. And Agent Cleary was actually named after like Marvel's comptroller. So it's like an inside baseball. Like all the characters were named after people who worked in Marvel's bullpen. So it's a nod within a nod. And so the notion that Damage Control is like they're handling new teen superheroes and like checking that out, that's an interesting expansion of their mandate. And I don't know what that means for Kamala going forward, but I'm really interested to see. So I was glad to see that little bit.
I do like that they're able to recognize real powers immediately. I'm like, well, that's not a costume. Like, no, all right, we got to go get there. We got to go get her.
Yep. Yeah, I like that too. This was a home run as the first episode. I think this is stronger than Moon Knight episode 1. I think this may be for me, and again, I may be biased because this is one of my favorite characters, but I think this was one of the strongest openers they've had.
Oh man, and you guys know the sorry. The guys who directed it. You guys know who they are?
No.
They are the guys who did Bad Boys for Life.
Oh, right. That's right.
Oh man, I'm a lifetime Bad Boys fan, but I'm now like, oh, do I have to come to grips with my fandom here? But before I figure that out, no, they are characters in their own right. They look like villains from the Bad Boys movie. And when it was like, wait, they're doing this show, I was kind of surprised. But no, I think that they did pretty well. Also, it's the same creator from the comic, right?
Sana Amanat, who's the editor who shepherded it, she is listed. She's got a creator credit, so I think she's involved in writing this.
Oh, who is? Oh gosh, I'm gonna say this name wrong. I've seen her in interviews and stuff though. Bisha?
Bisha Ali. She is. I don't think she's worked on the comic. She's a screenwriter and stand-up comedian. She worked on Loki. She worked on
4 Weddings and a Funeral
and Sex Education. 4 Weddings and a Funeral, the TV show, by the way.
Oh,
which I didn't know was a thing. Yeah, she worked on.
Me neither.
She worked on a bunch of. She was an executive story editor on Loki, and then she wrote one of the episodes. So yeah, she's not new to the Marvel family for sure.
Yeah, no, she is very sharp in like interviews and all the kind of explainers on this.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, I'm digging it.
Yeah.
Especially the motion graphics. I think that is literally one part where they've just set themselves so far from like the next best thing I can think of.
Yeah, I get that. All right, let's jump over and talk about the Orville, which has returned after a long hiatus for a
Wait, aren't you gonna let Melissa say something about Miss Marvel? I mean, I guess we ran out of time.
Yeah, we just ran on. We moved on. What are you doing,
Okay,
Kyle? What are
she
you
could talk
doing?
about Orville. She could talk about Orville. Sorry.
Pay no attention to the man behind the podcast.
Kyle calling out the thing we're trying to get away with. Anyway, the Orville New Horizons over on Hulu now after having been on Fox for 2 seasons. And from all that we're hearing, it sounds like this is basically final season. Like they're not going to do any more of it. There's probably it's expensive. There may have been some creative differences between the people at Fox and Seth MacFarlane. And yeah, where do you guys come down on the Orville as a general thing?
Are we talking just up till now or this season?
Up till now, like
particular?
where do you come down on the Orville as a concept?
I'm very much a TNG was like my Star Trek, and kind of something that doesn't really pay homage to Star Trek as much as it pays homage to TNG.
Yeah.
Was really cool for me. I almost don't want it to be as like cheesy funny at times, because I do think they are nailing like a lot of sci-fi stuff that I really dig.
Mhm.
But for the most part, like this is definitely I look forward to a week to week show.
Nick, what about you?
Same. TNG. Seth MacFarlane loves Star Trek while recognizing what's silly about it. This is like a live action version of Lower Decks for me. Maybe definitely not as silly, but
Yeah.
with enough like goo
Mhm.
monsters that are voiced by fucking what's his name?
Norm Macdonald.
Norm Macdonald. Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay. Well, we're not taking this completely too seriously.
Yeah.
I've never thought of it, the Lower Decks comparison, like Seth MacFarlane trying to eat the Star Trek lunch, so they're just like, oh, we'll eat some of that cartoon lunch.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison. I liked the first season, but I definitely found the sort of sophomore sense of humor of Seth MacFarlane to be a detraction from it. Like I thought this was a good riff on Next Generation, but some of the jokes were goofy and didn't belong. And then in season 2, I felt like they turned a corner and got a little more serious. And then they did that killer finale, and it feels like New Horizons is the Orville I've always wanted to watch, because it's not really a comedy anymore. Like
No,
were there any jokes in this first episode? It is straight up a Next Gen show.
I didn't like these 2 episodes. I was like, this is
Wait,
just
oh, you watched both?
depressing.
I've only seen the one. I didn't watch the new one that dropped today. So
Well, there's not
Oh, yeah, I
not
only
much
got to
fun
watch
and
the
games
first
in the
one.
next one either.
you didn't think it was funny that Isaac committed suicide? You didn't think a whole suicide episode was good?
Wow.
Not a
I
funny
do think
thing?
that's a really interesting idea as far as AI and
Yeah.
how they can get depressed and what that means for
Yeah.
them. And I'm kind of like I do wish like Seth MacFarlane was like, I'm kind of the captain on this ship, so you gotta do it. Like if I say fix Isaac because he might be our only chance to like, win against our enemies, you're gonna do it. Because it wasn't even just a morality thing of like, yeah, but we almost died, and then we only lived because of the intel on this guy. So
Yeah.
we're gonna do this. I don't care what your fucking like. What did he say? Oh, so your loyalty to your crew is depending on your personal feelings at the time. And I thought
Yeah.
that was an
Mhm. Yeah.
interesting like, yeah, you can't have it be a personal thing of like of well, I don't want to follow that order. I don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that they're like, oh, we have one of the few people that can think fourth dimensionally and do this da da da. Well, what's the problem? She's racist.
Well, I don't even think she's like it's racist that she can't let go of this. She tells him like, oh, so what's it? The pilot was like, oh well, don't ignore it. Just keep it there and then stay mad. And I'm like, okay, I'm not a
Yeah.
psychologist, but I can definitely tell you that is not a healthy way to deal with this.
Yeah, it's not going to help you. Yeah. Yeah. I actually really like this. You're not wrong. It does feel a little dour, and they maybe went a little too far in that direction. But I think I'd rather have it be slightly dour as opposed to like goofy.
Well, I think that you can't the topic of suicide is way too like serious to really pepper in a lot of jokes with it. So and then
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
2 episodes are really about that. And they have to be
Yeah.
about the fallout of that last finale because of how
Right.
big a deal it was. It would make
Right.
no sense for things to just go back like they were, like, back to normal. We got to deal with the
Right.
Isaac
Right.
in the room.
They also got a lot more money for spaceships and
Oh
space
yeah,
stations
man.
and all the CG.
That new fighter looks cool as hell. I loved that sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks expensive, and that's one of the things I like about this is that it is very clearly a Star Trek riff. Like they just filed those serial numbers off, but at the same time, they look like their stuff looks cool. Like if you started on models of the Orville ships, I could definitely see people buying them. They're cool looking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
I think the only thing or the only issue with them is Star Trek. They're very good at like customizing and individualizing ships.
Yeah.
But like the Orville fleet, which I feel like that's how it would be in real life. All those
They're
ships
all the
are
same.
kind of the
Yeah,
same.
they all look the same.
Yeah.
You're right. You're
Yeah.
right. And I think you're right. That is the way it would be. Like they all look like the same ship.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I thought the other downside, at least in the first episode that I saw, was that they were so focused on Isaac and on Dr. Finn.
No one else gets any time to shine.
And I'm gonna super complain that Ed Mercer doesn't get a lot of time because Seth MacFarlane always felt a little self-indulgent in this. But man, he barely gets to do anything, and Adrian Palicki is basically wasted.
Yeah, like
And I think that's a shame.
and then what's his name? The Mocklin.
Are you talking? Yeah, you're talking about yes, Bortus.
Oh, Boris.
Bortus.
It's like
yeah.
Bortus
two
is
lines.
like a cameo. It's a cameo.
That felt
yeah.
jarring too,
Yeah.
because it is like, sorry, Captain, it's blah blah blah.
Because he's a big character. He is a
Yeah, he
big
is.
character.
They've done a lot with him, and yeah, it was kind of weird. I think, as you said, Nick, I think the focus had to be on Isaac and what all happened, and that means that's be the people who are around him, like the doctor and her sons, and they had to introduce a new character to be racist. So
they also had to show the I forget the character's name, but he's like in engineering. Had to show him hooking up with a prickly chick.
yes, yeah, yeah.
I was like, they did waste a couple minutes on that scene.
Yeah.
We could have gotten some, group camaraderie.
Well, I mean, it was only to get like the inspiration to how to fix Isaac, and I'm like, well, that could have taken 30 seconds. I don't know why we had to have this big. Well, your planet thinks of suicide in a completely stupid way. Like I don't know. Feels like a weird conversation to have after sex, post-coital. Like
I'm glad to have it back though. I think it's good, and I'm looking for. I'm curious if they're going to get that balance back, or if this is the speed they're going for the last season. If it's going to be just, hey, it's the next generation now.
Well, Seth MacFarlane at this
darker.
point doesn't have anyone to impress or prove anything to. He's just going to want to do what he wants to do at this last finale. So whatever it is, it'll be what he wants to do. Better for worse.
All right. Let's jump over and talk about Stranger Things season 4, the final season. I should say with a caveat, I've only seen 4 episodes of this. I did not, because they're so long and because my TV time was so limited, I did not get to watch, and I would like us to avoid spoiling those last 3 if possible.
Sure. I'm only 7 come back and so
God damn it. they're gonna do 2 more episodes, I think, right? Is it 2 or 3? That's like the final season in a couple
Ooh, I
of
don't
weeks.
know, but yeah, it's like less than a month out, and
But here's the thing: if they were going to split it, why not split it half and half? I'd be almost caught up if they split it in half and half.
Oh, you'll know when you get to the end of it. They picked the perfect
all right
mid-season
Anyway,
point.
so to tell you guys where I am, just so we don't actually spoil me.
Oh yeah.
I am at the point where, and this is such a cool scene, Paul Reiser's doctor comes back to 11 and basically tells her, hey, I've got a way to give you your powers back, but you have to choose it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I left off. And Hopper's in Russia and has been told that his buddies are coming to get him. That's where I'm at. And what's interesting is I know a ton of stuff happens after that. I just don't know what it is. But I also feel like they did a lot of setup and moving pieces around in those first 4 episodes. And to be honest, while I love Stranger Things, I feel like they got a little self-indulgent this season because god damn, there are a lot of characters in this show.
And then they added another big new one. Eddie is a very big character this season.
He is.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Eddie Argyle's going to be a new fan favorite. I mean, he already is a new fan favorite.
Not only that,
Is
but
he?
Eddie's got a Eddie's got a band and a D&D group around him. So not only is it Eddie, he's got 3 other characters. And then because Lucas split off, they've got 4 jock characters.
Yeah, they have an jock antagonist.
We already had like 12 characters to service here.
The parents are actually getting involved this season. That's 6 other characters right there.
But I feel like they spent a lot of time, and I was definitely watching it. At some points, I'd be like, wait a minute, is this a character I'm supposed to know? Have I just forgotten this because it's been so long since I watched Stranger Things? No, okay, that's a new character, and that was distracting, and I did kind of get annoyed by that. That said, all these characters are good. Like all the characters they've got are good, the new ones and the old ones, and so I can't get too upset about it. And also, I thought the story of like 11 and Mike, not 11 Mike, 11 and Will, basically not doing great in California.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to the point where if 11 didn't have her powers, I'm pretty sure she was going to kill that bitch.
She tried.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, okay, so you just attempted murder on that woman right there.
Yeah. By the way, that woman, she deserved everything she had coming. They made her such a hateful bully. I was like, yeah, hit her with the skates. Hit her again.
Yeah. I was sitting there like, this is so satisfying. I love this. And Shannon's like, that's sick. No, this is bad. And I'm like, no, it's good. Like, she was so mean to her. Like, look, she's bleeding.
Yep.
It feels so good.
Look, that's a couple weeks for her with the cast on her face, not bullying a couple of kids. I think we won on that.
That's a win-win. Yeah.
This is also like 1980s over the top, like adults don't exist bullying.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Where it's just Lord of the Flies and the skating
rink.
No,
there's like 3 adults at anywhere ever, like except for like when the town gets together to hunt Eddie scene. Like like I don't get how there's like a school that seems to have 1 guidance counselor, 1 teacher, and sometimes a principal.
Oh man. That whole thing where, and this may be a little beyond where Randy's at, but there is a town hall type situation where the cops are just trying to get everybody's attention, and people are just like, F the police, we're the town.
And
it's like,
well, it's that satanic panic that they're playing off of with like the D&D Hellfire Club. And I love that there's a lot of characters, like the parents, most of them don't like, this is just a club for nerds. This is stupid. We're wasting time trying to get these guys, like, because the actual authorities, like the FBI or whatever, know that it's upside down shit and are after 11 and other stuff. So, like, okay, so this Eddie guy, we don't care about him.
Yeah, I really like the design for Vecna. I think they did a great job with him. I think he's a great scary bad guy, and
all of the like the Friday Nightmare on Elm Street kind of homage and like tribute stuff they do, which Vecna is a big part of that. I think it's just done really, really fun.
So I think this all starts to come, like episodes 1 through 3 are a lot of like reminding us who all these characters are. They seriously spend 3 episodes introducing us to this cast of 400 characters.
Yeah, and you got to know who's everybody's at, who's dating, who's not, who's broken up.
It's the Game of Thrones season.
Yeah, I was starting to worry that maybe I wasn't as into Stranger Things because I was liking it, but I wasn't like, oh, Stranger Things is back. This is so good. It was interesting and I liked it, but I wasn't loving it until we get to episode 4 and the gang gets back together and they just start picking each other up and they're all like, they basically go to it. What's the name of the DM? What's Eddie?
Eddie.
They go to Eddie and they're doing the thing like it's the Frog Brothers from Lost Boys where they're like, look, man, we've dealt with this kind of thing before. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And then there's that.
Well, I mean, we don't have the chick that has superpowers. Normally, she did a lot of the heavy lifting, honestly.
Yes,
but
it was so good. But then the bit where they pull up to is it Lori? Who's the sister?
Oh, Nancy.
Nancy. Where they pull up to Nancy and they get out of the car and they all give her that sort of half wave and she's like, "Oh shit, right, it's on." I love I love a good getting the band back together scene, and they did that really, really well.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Those Vecna deaths are nothing to sniff at either. Like,
no, they're mean. Yeah, it's bad.
They're killing kids.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
So these deaths, I know that I don't know if it's this year, but recently there is this render engine called Houdini. And I don't know if that's what they use or not, but it has recently introduced all these tools that make that like ragdoll breaking of the bones and like slamming on the ground much easier. Like you can do that type of thing a lot quicker now. So I wonder if they were like, dude, we could fuck up some kids this season if you want. Like computers have caught up to ripping them apart and turning them into like a little ball of paper.
Yeah, the only part I'm not crazy about for what I've seen is, well, one, the Russian prison has nothing to do with any of the other storylines.
Yeah,
It could
it's
basically
like
be
they
its
just like
own
we didn't want to
thing.
give up. We didn't want to give up Hopper. That's all that is.
Yeah, that's the only thing is like David Harbour is too much of a fan favorite character to not have him in it, so we're doing that
Yeah.
even though arguably what they're doing is more ridiculous than what the kids are doing of like trying to
Right.
infiltrate
Oh,
a
big
fucking
time.
Russian prison. And what's it? The 11 getting her powers back, that has to deal with like a Weapon X memory that she's like repressing, and
Yeah.
just they go back and they explain too much, in my opinion, of what
Okay. All right.
what
Yeah.
11 was going through, and they
I-
puss out on a couple things of like, you didn't need to do this.
I did love seeing Paul Reiser again, and I love
Oh,
when
yeah.
the cops come and get 11, and they're driving her away. I'm like, where's this going? Are they going to show her? Is she going to go to jail? And then the cars start pulling around. I'm like, oh right, of course the feds are on it, and they're just going to take her away from the cops. And I just thought that was a great little bit. Like okay, of course
Yeah.
11's got to get her powers back. Of course they have to do that. So
Well, what's really interesting is right where you're at now, Randy.
mhm.
There's going to be kind of and Nick, I'd love to hear if you felt the same way. A bit of a jarring timeline shift. All right. So from the moment that Paul Reiser takes 11 away, 11's on a timeline, and then the rest of the gang is on another timeline, and they meet up by the end of the season. And I felt like that was super satisfying, but it was definitely like you kind of. It's funny you were talking about being confused by the characters, and I'm like, oh buddy, you
Well,
got
it's
to
weird
strap in
because
next episode.
we're spending a lot more time, honestly, with Steve, Dustin, and that crew, and
Yeah.
it feels like way more time is passing than when we're with the other. It doesn't help that a lot of 11 stuff is dealing with memory, and we're going backwards in time with that, and we only see her as a small 11 in the like mirror sometimes. So it's hard to tell what is in the past and what, like, okay, so is this not when was this? Like, is this real?
Well,
Is this a
and
memory?
right when I was ready to give up on that whole thing, I felt like they nailed it. They stuck the landing at
Hard
the very
disagree.
end, and
You're talking about
hard disagree.
the very ending with showing the rest of that flashback they showed in the beginning of the season, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a cop out.
I feel like
they pussied out on that.
You don't think that it like retrofitted so much that we've learned about the show for the first 3 seasons?
It made 11 less mysterious and
Interesting.
That they definitely sacrificed that.
and they work it around. It feels like they're bending over backwards to tie the Vecna thing into the storyline of like, well, we can't have these not be unrelated, so let's have this really long explanation for why 11 has something to do with Vecna, and like it over years of how like the Upside Down first got started.
Well,
and I'm like, we don't need to
yeah,
know
we
how
could
the Upside Down
probably
started. The
stop it
Upside Down
there.
is here. It's cool. I don't need to know how it is
Mhm.
here. Like, it's just an awesome thing that these
All right.
kids are finding.
I'll weigh in on this next week when I get a chance to finish the rest
Oh,
of it.
I cannot wait because you're also. I feel like all the good theory stuff is in the last few episodes.
Okay. Yeah, it's just they're so long, and it's like there's that's like
Yeah.
3 or 4 hours left to watch. So yeah, I need to make some time for it. I'm also behind on some other stuff.
Also,
so.
Steve is still the best.
Steve is the best.
Steve's pretty awesome.
Steve's great. Yeah.
This isn't going to be like the best show of the year or even my favorite show of the year, but I will stand by it. This has been my favorite TV watching experience of the year.
Interesting. Okay.
Easy.
All right.
Like kind of getting back in with these characters and having those moments like the Paul Reiser moment, or the getting the band back together moment.
Makes me want to go
like,
back and watch
just
season
like-
1, honestly. Like,
Well,
to do
the
a whole
problem with
rewatch.
season 1 now is what you just mentioned. Like 11 being a complete mystery, like made that first season super badass because she wasn't our answer to everything at that point. Her powers were still unpredictable.
Yeah.
But yeah, now we've kind of peeled the curtain back. We know everything about 11 now.
All right, you guys, should we bring Melissa back in for dessert?
Yeah, I'd love that. Yeah.
All right, let's do that. All right, it is time for dessert, and for me, this is both dessert and appetizer and entree, because I didn't get to talk about this last week, because somebody jumped the gun and deliberately talked about Obi-Wan behind my back.
Yeah.
We knew it was the only way to get you to listen was to put that front and center.
I can't pass up an opportunity without you here and just Kyle to defend Star Wars. So I can talk about how it can't. Man, Star Wars can't do anything so cool, it can't ruin it in the next goddamn second.
If I'm your last line of defense, like cue the meme of Uncle Owen's skeleton like falling out of the sand igloo.
So Melissa and I are going to talk about all 4 episodes of this show. Well, y'all have already talked about this last week, but so we'll talk about episode 4. But first, I want to get Melissa, you and I want to hear your thoughts on Obi-Wan so far. I know of your love for Little Princess Leia.
And I was already excited for this series. I'm someone who came to the Star Wars universe kind of later in life. Grew up in kind of an anti-sci-fi fantasy household. So I didn't watch the first Star Wars film until I think I was 21. But then, kind of fell in love with it afterward. It was Empire Strikes Back that really had me fall in love with it. And then the new films and all that. So I was excited for Obi-Wan just to see like where that story went. I'm not the biggest Anakin Skywalker fan.
Yeah.
So I was kind of curious how they were going to work him into it. But then
By
when
ignoring him completely.
Well, it helps that it's not his voice most of the time.
Oh yeah.
I find I'm hoping that, I've seen him in other stuff and his delivery, like Hayden Christensen's delivery has improved since those days. Like I didn't like his delivery of his lines or his inflection. Like there was just something about it that bothered me. I called him Whinykin.
Hey, you know what movie Hayden Christensen was actually really good in? No one else does either.
Jumper.
Sorry, what were you saying?
I was gonna
Kyle?
say he's sounding super Canadian in the interviews, so I'm not surprised that you're like, oh, I like the way he's sounding.
And I don't like the way he sounds. I mean, I want to support my fellow Canadian, but I did not like the way he sounded.
This is Ewan McGregor's show. This is like an apology. We are sorry that we gave you the coolest character in the prequels to just be the coolest one around with nothing else working.
Well, I think one of the things that's interesting that I was talking with some friends about is that it was sort of hinted at clumsily in the prequels that Obi-Wan was supposed to be like the investigator Jedi. In the second movie, he like goes to his badly CGI buddy in the bar, and he's tracking down the assassin, and he was digging into the Sith in the first one. Like he's supposed to be a guy who's like the detective Jedi, and that's a cool concept that was not remotely visible in those movies. And so this feels like that guy. He's doing the two-fisted thing. He's investigating. He's searching out Leia on this sort of crimey planet. Like they definitely gave him the meaty part that he wanted to play in the first place, and a different version of Jedi than we've seen. These sort of PTSD noirish Jedi, I think, is a really interesting place to go.
I do like in the latest episode, especially, you have to see him get good at wielding a lightsaber again. Like it has been a while.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that was an interesting idea they played with when Mando came in on Book of Boba Fett, was like getting to see somebody use a lightsaber and not look completely awesome. Because that's pretty much, I mean, I guess Force Awakens or the new Star Wars trilogy kind of played with that a little bit. But no, like I really love the idea that it's not just the way it was when we were kids. Oh, pick it up and it's like a butter knife, and it's super easy to defend yourself.
Great excuse to have that fight scene be very slow and poorly choreographed too between Vader and Obi-Wan. Because I was so hyped for that, and I'm like, wow, all right, it's two slightly lesser older dudes fighting. Like every time these two get into they have the most boring lightsaber fights.
Yeah.
I love Vader when he's like straight up Mike Myers. Like
Dude, when he's wasting
when
people
he's-
in
you mean-
that village.
I want to be clear. You mean Michael Myers?
oh yeah, sorry. It's a Mike Myers mask. Said Michael Myers.
Yeah, I do think I think Vader here is scary, like in a way that we haven't seen since maybe the end of Rogue One. He's like torturing some dad. The kid comes out to help him, and you think, okay, he's gonna put the dad down, and like they're gonna huddle and be scared. No, he snaps the kid's neck with the Force like it's nothing.
He doubles
and
down.
then just moves on. Yeah, and he's scarier and more evil than I think we've ever seen him. This is him at his most corrupt, I think.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Vader is always he's such a cool design.
Yeah.
And a cool concept. He walks into a room and you're like, this is the badass of the room. Everyone here is afraid of him. He's like a head taller than everyone. And just when he and just the conversation they have is like, I am what you made me, bud. Oh, do you remember when you left me on Mustafar burning? You know? Well, I do. It's like your suffering has just begun. No, killing you'd be too easy. I'm gonna enjoy this.
Well, and what's interesting is that his hatred feeds into his power in the dark side of the Force.
Mhm.
So he is like his mission isn't to like kill Obi-Wan or get like he's like a cat. He needs to play with Obi-Wan and to like really kind of like build his hatred for him to like become more powerful.
Yeah. I also really like what they're doing with the Empire, the early days of the Empire. So a lot of this is informed by the Rebels cartoon, the Inquisitors and all this kind of stuff. But this notion of the Empire, this is that transitional period. We've got the clone trooper who's out on the street begging for money, and Obi-Wan's like looking at this guy who's now so pathetic, who basically helped kill all his friends. Like there's some nice mixture of like of the fall of the Republic and the rise of the Empire. And when we see the Empire in Star Wars, they're powerful, but they're about to be taken down by the scrappy old Empire. At this point, the rebels are just forming, and the Empire feels unchallenged. And I think that's really interesting. They are scary. The Inquisitors come in and do whatever they want. And
yeah, they're colonizers. They come in for planets and their resources, strip them, and then move on. And it's great. It's a cool way to see our bad guys, especially in a regular I've never heard so many stormtroopers talk. Like,
yeah,
it's like I can't believe you got so
Also-
many lines of dialogue.
Well, I was going to say, and they don't just show you that. Like, you live in that world so much so that there's even like a Trumper alien in there who's
Mhm.
like, oh, yeah, I'll help you guys. I'll give you a ride. And then as soon as he gets to some stormtroopers, he's like, hey, buddies, you should check them out. I think they're up to no good.
That was a great moment. And you know who that was, right?
Oh, I don't.
It was Zach
Famous
Braff.
cameo?
Zach Braff.
Oh, for
Doing his
real?
best to sound
Yep.
like Seth Rogen.
I also really like what they're doing through Rebellion here. They've got the Sand Snake from, not Sand Snake, but one of the people from Game of Thrones. She was the Viper.
Oh.
I can't remember the actual.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, she was Oberyn's wife, I think. She
Yeah,
wasn't one of
yeah.
the snakes or
Yeah.
whatever.
She's actually forever, in my mind, will be Susie Costello from Torchwood.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh.
But she's got that great juicy role as like an Imperial officer who turned to the
Mhm.
Rebellion, and that's
Well,
really good.
I like the
Can I-
idea of when you join up, it's already too late to like figure out that the Empire is bad. Like
Mhm.
it's like you're in North Korea. You're like, ooh, yeah, but I can't really do anything about that. I can't quit this job. That's not how this
Yeah.
works.
What were you saying,
Yeah.
Kyle?
I think it's kind of funny that her and Pedro Pascal have gone from one brother and sister kissing franchise to another brother sister kissing franchise.
Okay. So this brings up a thing that I think would have been really funny. I'm glad they didn't do it. I understand why they didn't. But there have been moments here. One of the problems doing prequels is that there's not a threat. Like, we know whatever happens, nothing's going to happen to baby Leia. And there's a
Mhm.
part of me, and I'm not proud of this part of me, that thinks it would have been hilarious if Obi-Wan had failed to save her when she fell and she had just gone splat. And we had learned that, in fact, Leia has never been Leia. And he got that spice dealing girl and brought her back as Leia, and then like Princess Leia's been dead this whole time. She's not Leia Skywalker, and also that would have retconned the kiss, so it's always okay. It wasn't
Sure.
actually his sister.
That's like some Paul McCartney is dead level shenanigans.
It's crazy. I know. I'm not proud of this. I'm not proud of it, but the thought did occur to me.
I love that you have to do something so horrible to try and fix the Star Wars all the time. It's just I liked I liked her interactions with Obi-Wan as far as because in the when you see her in A New Hope, she is fuck the Empire. The Empire can suck my dick. And now we see where she got that of like, oh, she saw from a young age what the Empire is and is like, fuck these guys.
Yeah, let's talk about this week's episode, because I was like watching her be put into a torture chamber by stormtroopers and by Reva. I'm like, man, how bad do you got to be to torture a 10-year-old for information? You're definitely showing us that the Empire is bad. And
Reva didn't even go, like, if you look at right before, she tortures her or whatever, it's almost like Reva was having second thoughts, like, you're literally going to make me do this?
Well, this is what happened to her.
Like,
obviously, this is what happened to her when they took her as a youngling. And so it's still like she's evil or whatever, but still like she's not completely devoid of empathy yet.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because they're kind of doing some retcon stuff, which they're really good at. This is like, Leia's been tortured in Star Wars already. Like we saw her tortured in Death Star, and she's always been this sort of like, you're not going to get any information out of me, torture me all you want. And that's because she's been tortured since she was a 10-year-old. She's like, I'm used to this shit. You guys can't, there's nothing you can do to me. And I love that even at 10, this girl,
force interrogate me, bring it.
Like she is scared, and she plays scared, like she plays a scared little girl, but at the same time, that steel spine of Carrie Fisher is in there, because she's basically like, this woman's threatening to torture her, and she's like, I am never going to tell you anything. And I thought that balance was really good. The girl they've got playing 10-year-old Leia is amazing.
Give the kid an Emmy. Her performances are so good. Like sometimes like a kid can play into their cute factor and you'll forgive if their performance isn't great. No, this kid is an amazing actor. She's phenomenal. And I think the scene that was really, really interesting and nuanced was when she says like, I thought the Empire's supposed to be good. Like I thought they're supposed to be doing good things. And Obi-Wan says, well, your father is trying to do that. So, she's starting to see like the nuances and the subtleties, like how something that was, the intentions were supposedly good and how it's been corrupted. Like I thought she conveyed that really, really well.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that came back to one of my favorite points in episode 4, where she's like, okay, I'll tell you where the Jedis are. Let's just call my father and, he'll tell you too, and we'll all get on the same page. And you can tell she's putting it together like, oh no, they don't want her father involved at all.
All right, well, that's our show for the week. I want to thank Melissa for being here. Want to thank Nick and Kyle.
And thank you, Randy.
Thanks, dudes.
Want to thank all our listeners. Thanks to our patrons. Reminder, you can go to patreon.com/tvdudes. Listen to us talk this week, play some D&D. And until next time,
TV Dudes out.
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast out of Austin, Texas. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/tvdudes.
You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is done by our friend and original TV Dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith.
To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com. I'm Randy Lander.
I'm Les Weiler.
And I'm Kyle Scott.
Thanks for listening.
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast out of Austin, Texas. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/tvdudes.
You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is done by our friend and original TV Dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith.
To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com. I'm Randy Lander.
I'm Les Weiler.
And I'm Kyle Scott.
Thanks for listening.